Welcome to GenVisibility interview series. We bring visibility to our genesis, geniuses, genealogy, generosity, and gentleness. You may feel isolated or alone, but you are not. We are a vibrant, thriving, creative, and amazing community. We are adventurers, trendsetters, and trailblazers. If you want to be part of GenVisibility, please submit our form by visiting our website, genvisibility.com. Your voice matters, your story matters, and we cannot wait to see you shine. Hi, Alysha.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Nice to see you again, or see you for the first time in a long time.
Yes, absolutely. This pandemic definitely changes how we do community. And that's like, great, like we should be able to go over each other's houses and everything like that, but it's kind of a different thing. But I'm glad that we were able to reconnect to talk about, this amazing, podcast.
Thanks. So, why don't we start with you? Tell me a bit about your job, because you have a really interesting gig right now.
Yeah, so I work for the Newburgh LGBTQ Center. Name change pending, because the reality is that we do work all across the Mid-Hudson Valley, not just within the city of Newburgh. And I work for out of our 5 focus areas. And the focus area I work out of is is called the Queers for Justice Committee, that focuses on community safety and prison abolition, where we do things like, so we fight for political advocacy, legislations on the city government, the county government, even the state government. And in addition to that, we're helping the community. We're helping the community not only through political legislation, but like real direct help by connecting people who are incarcerated to community members on the outside to build a relationship and to tell their story. We feed people once a month in the city of Poughkeepsie and give them anything they really need. And we also are working towards getting sustainable housing. We have our queer relief fund. We're taking down, I like to think about it as I'm taking down the system, and then me and my other co-organizers is we're building up the society that we would like to have, without a world that doesn't involve prisons.
That's amazing. So you're basically both working on the legislative level to transform policies that are hurting the community, and then you're specifically supporting queer people in the community that are needing help, either because they are incarcerated or needing support with food, housing, etc.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
So,
And I know that you were studying and are on pause because of the pandemic. Do you want to tell me a bit about what you're pursuing, the degree you're pursuing?
It changes all the time. I'm pursuing my degree at SUNY Orange Community College in the degree of human services, to get my associates in human services, but with working within this job and being really active on a legislative level, I'm not really sure if I want to be in human services. I think more policy is up my lane. But I put my education on hold mainly because of the pandemic, because I found myself really disengaged with school, being that it was on the computer. And even more so, particularly as much as I enjoyed my time at SUNY Orange, but I wasn't really sure if formal education was the best route for me, because I do great at things that I'm passionate about, but things that I'm like, yeah, okay, I really just honestly am not really too concerned about, like the work I'm doing now. I don't have a legislative degree. I don't have a policy degree. I don't have any degree, but because of I call it my specialty skill to be able to read very boring documents and be able to explain them in common language. That's my superpower. I learned what is legislative advocacy. I learned what does a bill look like, how to write a bill, like what's the process of government, all on my own. So whereas it started off where, no, I'm not really staying concentrated during the pandemic, has now turned into looking at education more of in like a poverty scholars type of way, where I can learn anything in the world. We are connected to the internet, and at any given point, I can look at various different things that I want to learn. And so I think I'm more interested in that type of learning, and I think that's the position that I'm moving with instead of a formal degree in education.
That makes a lot of sense. And wait, closing that and making that big. Oh, you're so much better. It makes a lot of sense, especially because in advocacy and legislation, real life experience, goes a long way. Instead of being theoretical, you want to be connected with the issues that you're advocating for. I just interviewed recently Selena Morrison. She's the first trans woman elected in the Philadelphia mayor office. Mm-hmm. She's the head of the LGBTQ affairs office. So, a really powerful position in the city of Philadelphia. And she's all self-taught, all working, with the community, in the community, and it's led her to, to some great things. So I think it's definitely a very, very good pathway. People tend to overvalue education, like a formal education, but I hear you, mm-hmm. There's many ways to do it and to do it right. So your passion is change. Your passion is transforming lives, transforming society.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's interesting. So I guess I'm formally incarcerated. I did 10 years in prison. And that has given me my, life experiences in terms of what I fight for, prison abolition. And what's so unique is because of my connection with inside prisons, I was able to connect with individuals who are in all across New York State prisons to be part of this team. So I love how we are just people who are inside and people who are outside working together into creating change, because I think that is, I know my experiences on the inside was not good at all, but there's definitely, ways for change. There's ways for how we can treat people on a humanitarian level, because regardless of anything, that's, yeah. So
that's amazing to use that experience that you've kept your connection and that you're able to use them. You look way too young to have spent 10 years in prison. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 31 years old.
Baby
yes.
face 31.
Yes, I am 31 years old. Yeah, I spent 10 years in prison, and I spent 10 years in a male's prison. And because I'm a transgender woman, and I think that two of the policies I'm fighting for now is for trans people to be housed in the jail that closely aligns with their own gender, when it comes to trans folks. And so that's what I'm fighting for right now. Like, those are two, like, I'm doing lots of things, but I think that bill I'm fighting for, not only in the state level, but in the county level, to let's create change. Like, why are trans people treated like anyone else other than, anyone else, who they are? Yeah. And I think that,
sorry. So how old were you when you were incarcerated, and were you already, did you already know for yourself, and were you already out as a trans woman?
So I went in at the age of 18. I was 12 days, 11 days after my 18th birthday. And yeah, I was incarcerated June 21st, 2007. And by then, like, at that point in my life, when it came to my sexuality and my gender, I was an undercover gay male. That is how I perceive the world. That's how I perceive myself. And as I went through the prison system, it'll take forever to talk about 10 years, but as I went through the prison system, I started coming out as openly gay, right? Openly gay male. And then I met this amazing woman named Gigi, who I haven't heard since from when we met. I would say 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. About, and she was a trans woman, and she was explained, and it was a very natural conversation where she was explaining to me of what's the experiences of like of being a trans woman. And kind of a light bulb went off, and everything she was saying was like a click. And so I started to come into terms with that, and I was like, okay, I'm not a gay male. I am Alysha. Like, that is who I am. And despite knowing that it would make my prison experience a little bit difficult, I felt that I needed to do this for me. And so with the red tape process and, thinking it out, I was able to finally start hormones inside of prison.
Wow.
And my birthday, anniversary, whatever we want to call it, is January 13th, 2017.
Wow.
And I think that is, and so that, now I'm 4 years.
Wow.
4 years, yeah.
4 years on
hormones, sorry.
Not 4 years out of prison. Okay.
4 years on hormones, 3 years on out of prison, 3.5 now. But
wow.
yeah.
And yeah, so I have two questions, but really I'm open to you kind of leading the conversation. But one of them is how did you survive prison? What were the ways that inner strengths and outside resources and connection allowed you to make it through prison more or less intact? And then how did you transition back, like 10 years from being a kid, a teenager, to being a grown woman? Like how did you then just transition into full on having to function after 10 years into society? So I'm curious about these two things.
Yeah, that is, so what is really interesting, for me, so I did heroin during my whole bid, prior to my bid, during my sentence. And I knew that I didn't want to go back to prison, but it's amazing because, so I have a fiance who's currently incarcerated. We met while we were locked up. And it's amazing because he helped me become the woman that I am. And I was able to reconnect with him because I wouldn't say purposely, I didn't connect with him right away when I got out. And we just, honestly, within the last year, we got reconnected out of nowhere, which was kind of ironic. And the conversation, the second we got on the phone, it was like we left each other yesterday. And then with that, I was able to make a lot of connections to people, and is honestly very impactful in my work today, to who I knew and the people that people who helped me become the woman that I know, despite me not really noticing that. There's a beautiful person in my life, Paris, genderqueer, incarcerated. And when we reconnected, and I told her everything I'm doing, I'm this, I'm a nonprofit, I'm clean. I am clean. So that is, I haven't done heroin in June 6th, since June 16th, 2017. But yeah, and when we reconnected, they told me that, they were like, I always knew you were going to do it. Like, you were amazing. And despite me, and they knew me when I was high, I was in the yard, I was high, I was chased, I was doing everything. And so it's amazing now these people are reconnected in my life that helped me become a woman on the inside, and transition back to the outside. As far as outside resources, there are not many. You have to look for them. And I think that is one of the most unique experiences about what I notice about what it's like to be in prison and be in society. Like, the biggest shock to me is that inside of prison, the community is there for you. Like, the community is the first thing that you the community is like you're automatically a prisoner, right? And then of course people find their subsets and subgroups, and of course there's conflict inside a prison, but it's an automatic acceptance without really explanation and understanding who you are. And out in society, I love my job. I love everybody that I work with, but I had to find them, right? I had to find the Newberg Center. I had to find places that helped me get clean, like Onward Recovery. I had to find programs that helped me get a job like Exodus Transitional Services. Like, that is the thing. Like, I had to find these people. I had to find, and whereas I didn't come home to an accepting community, I didn't come home. Family's not really in my picture. Me and my mom have occasional conversations, like once a week, but my family's not in my picture. And so I had to figure this out on my own, and it was difficult. I remember walking out of the prison, getting my mom's car, and we're stopping at Dunkin' Donuts about 30 minutes away from the prison, 30 minutes since I'd been walked outside those prison gates. And I physically could not get out the car when my mom asked me to. Like, my mom was like, "Hey, you want to come in and, get us?" I said, "No, but can you bring me a coffee?" Like, I wasn't ready to face the world.
Right.
And, and the sad reality is that I came out. It wasn't necessarily because I wanted to stay clean, but it was because because I was so afraid of going back to prison. And because I was so afraid of going back to prison, because I was so afraid of being in, just like so afraid of just going back in prison, I didn't get high, right? And eventually it became this thing of, now I want to be clean. I'm never going back to heroin at all, ever again.
I mean, it's what a motivator, right? Like the fear of going back to prison. It's mind blowing to me, as an outsider, mind blowing that you get sent to jail at 18, and I don't care what the offense was, for 10 years. And that what's happening in prison is that you have drugs available, that you can actually nourish your addiction. Maybe create a new addiction. Maybe it wasn't even there before, but that's how you manage the situation. And that they release you without any programs in place, that you get out after 10 years as a young woman. And like you said, not everybody has the family who's going to receive them, the community who's going to, support them, and that you have to figure that stuff out on your own, that they didn't connect you with these resources and made sure that you had stability. Like, how many people can stay out of jail considering this, these barriers of reentry? I mean, it's wild from the inside, and it makes me, I'm in so much awe of you, like the strength that it must have taken to do that. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it's it definitely it took a lot, and I'm so happy that I'm here. Like, I love my life. Like, of course, does my life have problems? Absolutely. I tried to go get my nails done yesterday, and right in the middle of my pedicure, the power went out, right? I got problems, so, but no, but I truly love my life, now, and I love where I'm at, and I'm glad I had the resilience to do it, but not a lot of people have the resilience.
No.
Kind of an idol of mine, someone who I really honestly look up to, kind of in a very superstar-y world, within the social justice work network, is Dominique Morgan, is the executive director of Black and Pink. And listening to her speech on resilience was like, yeah, and I get that resilience to continue and to be out and to fight every single day, because every day it's a challenge.
Yeah. But you, like
because
you said, you find your tribe. You find your tribe, and that's giving you the structure, the love, the support that's making it probably more possible to face these challenges.
Yeah, I think that but I think that that's what's important about like having a tribe, like is having this community. Like I work with some amazing trans people that are in my life. My mentor, Ray Liner, they are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. They believed in me when I didn't really believe in myself. Um, and to be here where I am today, to give me this opportunity without it, no degree, no nothing, my history, everything included, like, okay, here you go. Like, supported me in so many ways. And then like even in this work, like one of my co-organizers, Sachet, they are absolutely amazing because like they're just working with me, and I look at them as like my other organizing half, because the way that they see things, in the terms of I don't, like I'm very type A, everything structured, everything organized. Whereas they are, they're able to look outside the box a little bit more and to see things and where things are missing. And so being able to grow and be able to grow with trans people and not have to worry about, I have roommates. All my roommates are trans, and it's important to have that trans community, and then being able to like look out for each other and support each other in ways that, is not really known. And because I know that within the trans community, especially Black and brown trans folks, experience even more discrimination than I do, because I know it firsthand. I know the way that I was treated inside prison, me being white, and my Black and brown sisters, how they would get treated. And I saw that and I noticed that, right? It's a very unique thing, and it's how the community is showing up for trans people. It's I'm proud, super proud of my transness, but I don't see, for me, I don't want there to be a trans day of visibility, because I look at it as like, I want there to stop being trans day of visibility. I want to literally be in the world, and this is a whole much larger conversation, where trans people don't have to say, hey, guess what? I exist in this world. I am amazing, and you need to look at me because I am doing amazing things. Why is that the case? And it frustrates me, right? It frustrates me how marginalized trans folks are, and how Black and brown trans folks are treated versus other white folks, and how there is such this discrepancy within the LGBT community, right? And then when it comes to trans folks, there's a situation that happened, where a certain person's house may have burned down, and they were gay, they were white, and within like 24, 48 hours, like they were able to raise us $100,000. It's crazy, but and it's funny because a good friend of mine has a GoFundMe asking for, I think, like $2,000, something like that. Black trans woman, and I'm not going to say their name, their respect to privacy, but that has been, it's been, I think, almost a week now since that GoFundMe has been out, and I can't say that last time I checked, but last time I checked, they did not meet their goal.
Right.
And it's like it's to see that, and it's in the same area. Right. It's people, not two different. It's not two different states. It's literally the same area.
Right. And people who come from resources are going to have access to more resources, obviously, in time of need. And people who don't have those connections when they're in need, then they have nobody to turn to. But your passion for justice, your passion for change is really it really shines, really shines bright. I'm wondering, what are the other things that really kind of brings joys to you? Like, it seems like friendship, community is a big one. I hear you talk about your roommates with a lot of pleasure, your mentors. do you have hobbies or any other things that you do that bring joy to you?
Well, I am a video game nerd. That is that
Okay.
is me. I love to play video games.
Which ones?
So for me, well, I'm now playing Final Fantasy. I've never got into the Final Fantasy world, and then my friend um introduced me to it, and it was just amazing, and we're working through that, and it's just so many things to do. But for me, I'm a story gamer. I need a good story to go with the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of so I play on a PS4. I'm looking to get an upgraded computer system where I can play games on the PC. But one of the greatest stories was The Last of Us, right? And there's two parts to that, and that was, it's a zombie movie. I mean, they're a zombie video game, but that's how I decompress. Like, I work Monday through Friday hard. I'm up at like 6, 7 in the morning. I'm working. I'm done at like 9 o'clock at night, and then I'm crawling in bed. Like, this
Wow.
is it. But intent, like, it's Saturday and Sunday. Like, that's my video game time. Like, I sleep in, I wake up, unless I have something to do, something do probably for the most part. I wake up, all that, maybe watch some TV, eat some breakfast, and play video games all day, right?
Nice.
And that's like I guess my hobby. But I'm actually I now have a porch, and I want to build a garden on my porch. So I'm thinking of picking up the hobby of gardening.
Nice.
Because I definitely want to be able to sit out there when it gets nicer and to do my work and all that, and just, be on the sun and just, sit back, relax, and, right there. So
Nice.
that might be a hobby I'm going to be picking up. But yeah.
Great. I was wondering if there is anything about your childhood that you want to share, like perhaps a little bit about how you grew up, and certainly as usual, like it's whatever you want to share. So anything about your family, maybe some of like your early childhood, like how maybe some of people that have helped you build that resilience, and then what happened that transitioned you into a life that led to being incarcerated. And again, you don't have to go into details about anything, but if you want to share the broad lines and give us a better sense of who you were as a kid, right? Like, it's always interesting to imagine the child behind the grown-up. That would be interesting to me.
Yeah. So for me, so growing up, so I grew up, in suburban family, right? Suburban, my family, 2 parents. I call myself a tri-stater because I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then when I was 5, we moved to New Jersey. So my dad, found work there, doing work at a mailbox, etc. And it was interesting how, and like, so that's when we lived in New Jersey, lived in Piscataway, New Jersey. And then my dad passed away from kidney failure. He lived with it for 6 years. 6 years.
And you were 11, if I recall.
I was 11. Yeah, I was 11 when my dad passed away, and that really changed things for me. That changed things in the ways, I don't know, because it was a very difficult time, and I would say because like everybody was doing this saying, and when you're 11 years old, you almost believe anything adults say. And so when my dad passed away, everyone was like, okay, you're the man of the house now. You're the man of the house now. And I was like coming into puberty, trying to figure things out, not sure like what my whole was going to be. And yeah, and that really it really took a hit on me.
Yeah. Well, what a messed up thing to say, an 11-year-old, that they're the man of the house,
Yeah.
And why do you need a man in the house also,
Yeah, like there's that whole thing, the patriarchy, all of that. And then it's just like, yeah. And, I know, like, were my aunts and my uncles really telling me, oh, you're the man of the house, I have to go to work, do 9 to... No, but, more a term of like endearment, like
Right.
that.
Well, they
Yeah.
were
And I
telling you to,
recognize that.
yeah, you needed to be
Yeah.
mature and responsible and support your mom and
Yeah.
all of that, but it's still a
Yeah.
lot for an 11-year-old. Yeah.
So that was the thing, right? Um, yeah.
And I
And
know that your mom at that point moved, so you lost your school connection and your
mhm.
community connection, and also she was she was like there was a lot of stress for her. She wasn't necessarily all that available for you either during that time. So it was a period, I guess, of loneliness and changes.
Yeah, I mean, no, it definitely was like as far as like my family dynamic that it completely flipped our world upside down. It really did. Um, from New Jersey, we moved to New York, and we settled in Goshen. And it was a change. It was a unique change. Because like things were very unstable for a while. Um, a lot of things going on in my middle school years and things like that. But when I got into my high school, um, it was like I was in Goshen, and it was I felt like things were settling down. I started to feel like I was belonged. Um, and then I found myself like there was a fair amount of partying that started going on my freshman year. Drinking, doing drugs, um, and it only got worse, right? It started off with drinking at a party, then weed, and the progression kept, going as the phase of addiction. And by my senior year, I was doing heroin. Um, and I think that, and I had a undercover boyfriend, right? Who was because like with the man of the house type of thing, um, it came from like I went through this like hyper masculinity type of stage through high school. I did sports. I joined the fire department. I was ready to go to the Air Force if I didn't get arrested. It's like
Right.
this very hyper masculine.
It's a
I grew up in a white
common,
town.
I've heard it's a
Very,
pretty
yeah,
common pathways that a lot of, not a lot, a number of trans women find themselves in the army or in hyper masculine environments, maybe as a way to cover, right? To cover up their inner experience that's too threatening for them.
yeah, yeah, and that's what like and so it's like being part of that, and then meeting this person who I had, had an undercover relationship who was male, and being that, and I started fighting with I want to come out. I want to come out.
Right.
Like I started fighting with that. I want to come out. Um, but he didn't, right? And you know, yeah, these things were just, ended differently. But we started getting high together. We started doing heroin. We started doing all those, everything. And it's amazing how like this is um where kind of my childhood led me. And like I don't know if, I burned down a house, right? That's why I went to prison to look for drug money. Um and when there wasn't um it was an empty house, right? There was nothing in there. There was
10
in
years,
renovation.
this is what they give somebody that burns an empty house, because I guess it doesn't differentiate empty and not empty. They just make it like that you could have caused harm, I guess. What would
Yeah.
be the justification of such a severe punishment?
So like, and that's the thing. It's just like, and so where does that go? Like, I don't know. To me, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't answer that. Like,
Right.
did I deserve 10 years? And we were talking about my addiction a little bit, and it's crazy because we're like, we have to we have to be what am I trying to say? You can't. So if when I was in prison, I told you like I was using drugs, and I couldn't go up to a correction officer a counselor, anything like that, and say that I am using and I want to get help without suffering consequences,
Right.
like
For using.
for using solitary confinement,
Right.
longer sentence term, everything like that.
Right. Complete ridiculousness. So it's like you
Exactly.
find a kid who's been addicted for years, who's clearly suffering, who's committed a crime based on their addiction. And instead of offering, rehabilitation, support, all that's needed to help a young person who's struggling, let's send them to jail and use drugs without being able to seek support. And if they do dare seeking support, let's just punish them some more. It's just like yeah. Is there how did, so you're saying what would you like to share now? I mean, do you want to talk more about your family relationship when you did come out to your mom as a a trans woman, like, or what has been like the process of coming out and of transitioning, and how it's nourished you, and or the difficulties in it? Like, what would you like to share?
No, I think my process was so my process was actually very unique because yes, I was able to start hormones in prison. I told my mom just before I was getting out, like I was on hormones for 6 months. Like that's it's like that's literally what I did. And my mom didn't agree with it. None of that. But she still picked me up anyways and different things like that. And what is so unique is that we went to Fridays, right? For it was my first big meal, I guess, since I've been released, right? So we go to Fridays, and at there, what we do is we go to we sit down, and our waiter, Adam, he said, good evening, ladies. What can I get you to drink? And that moment was huge for me, because it really was like, no, that
It's like
moment
a
was,
gender,
it was,
right? It's
yeah, it was a gender
euphoria.
affirmative because, yeah, exactly. Because I really wasn't sure,
How you were perceived.
how it's like,
Yeah.
how I wasn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to really be on hormones. Like I was really like, if this doesn't work, if it's too hard out here, I'm going to stop. And like, literally from like that early evening, when he used ladies, it was like boom. And then I thought, like, I mean, I was nothing, it was 6 months. I really wasn't developed a whole lot. So it was very early in my transition. And for him to say that it was something.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I've heard people use the term gender euphoria because we often talk about dysphoria, but there is, for all of us, whether we're cis or trans or non-binary, there is these moments where you feel like somebody really sees you clearly, and that euphoria, that feeling of like being seen the way you feel internally. So it sounded like you had that moment, and it decided you to, because I can see how you were like, well, I've had hard enough of a life. If I need to pass in order to survive, then maybe, if not to pass, sorry, if I need to continue to pretend to be a man, maybe is that what you were saying? That maybe you wouldn't take hormones and you would.
And I would go pretend, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
pretend,
I would
right.
go like, and that is, but
Undercover,
but that,
right. If
all
that's
that,
needed
exactly.
to survive, right. Because survival instincts are strong, right? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do in order to feel safe.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's like I didn't have that, because so I came out of prison in 10 years, and so okay, I was Alysha now. Everybody that I knew prior wasn't around. My only connection from who I was prior to 2007 is, my mom, and then there's a few like distant connections, people who I've connected on Facebook. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Things like that. But so I didn't have to go through the process of dealing with friends who I had to tell. I didn't have to go through the
Right.
process of coming out to my family because I was on my own. I
Right.
didn't have I was housing insecure before Alysha.
Right.
So coming out of
Right.
prison, like that was way before Alysha, I was housing insecure.
Right.
And so coming out, I didn't have to do that. I just introduced myself, Alysha. Yes, I got misgendered. It took me a while to legally get my name changed. That helps a whole lot. Been on the hormones. I'm now developed in places that I love to, be developed at. And it's, yeah. And so like, that is the part, like where I'm at now, but I didn't have the difficult, I didn't really have the disattachment. I didn't
Okay.
have to go from my old person to
Right.
Alysha.
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have that process. It was like that happened over here, and now 10 years later, because
Yeah.
what happens in prison, it
New
doesn't
me.
matter.
Right.
Like
Right.
exactly. And so it's, but yeah, so I didn't have that difficulty that a
Yeah.
lot of my trans siblings definitely have,
Right.
who
Right.
have to break that connection. I didn't have to break a connection. That
Right.
connection was already broken.
Right. You
So
get to just rebuild. You were
mhm,
I guess the silver lining of having nothing when you come back, of having to build everything from
mhm,
scratch. It's like just moving to a new country and having to, you can reinvent yourself, and you get to start
mhm.
clean.
And
And
yeah,
really, and in so little years, you've created such a vibrant life for yourself. It's really quite impressive.
yeah.
Before we finish, I'm curious about two things. One, if you can, share again or more about all the things that you love about your life, because I love hearing you kind of share that with us and with me. And if you can talk a bit about maybe what you're looking forward for the future, like it does not necessarily like in 10 years, but just say in the next few years, what are you, I know you talked about the garden, what else is making you kind of like excited? And then the last thing, if you could kind of think about a young audience, maybe older teenage people, maybe young adults that watch your video, like what would you like to share with them?
Um, So okay, so first, yes, okay, so I'll answer the first part first, and then I'll go to
Yeah.
the final. But yeah, so for me, what I love about my life. So for me, like what I love about my life, like not only you know the people in my life, right? But even the little things of living with my friends, right? We started off as roommates, and now we're friends. Like it's yeah, and that's what's amazing. Um, and and then, just the work that I'm doing. And it's not, I'm grateful I don't have to go flip grilled cheeses at, the Woodbury Commons anymore. Super grateful. But I think I was doing this work before that. I was doing my work before I started actually becoming a staff member, and I'm doing the work now, regardless of anything. It wouldn't change for me, honestly, if I got a phone call and said, well, we ran out of money. We can't pay you. Like we're broke type of thing. Okay. All right. So then, okay. All right. I'll see you later. I'm in a meeting in 5 minutes. Like that's
Right.
literally what would
That
happen
work is
because
your passion, and if
it's
you
my
had to
passion and
flip
it's just
burgers in order to,
benefit that,
right.
yeah, exactly. Um, and so, and then in the future, so my fiance, who, Brian, who will hopefully be home, will be coming home. And he
Do you know
will have
when?
done third. Hopefully there'll be a parole board. There is a parole board, so we're hoping for that because all the ducks are lined up, bro. He's been in for 30 years. Well, he's been in for 27 years, and it'll be
Wow.
30 years when he gets out. But he has 30 to life. And so that is a real hope. All the ducks are lining up, and everything like that. And so that is, big thing, but it's still left to up to the parole board. And then for me, and then so that means coming home to him. And because one thing I noticed about being with him is that despite me being out for 3.5 years, I feel very uncomfortable in public spaces. New situations, I feel very uncomfortable. I'm always looking around when I'm in public spaces a whole lot. It's sometimes,
Safety.
it's a thing within me is like I'm waiting to wake up and go, and be back in prison. still to this day. Like a lot of it is dream, and I think that it's slowly coming a part of it. But when I'm with him, all that anxiety, all that nervousness goes away. And then even so much for when visits were opening prior to COVID and going to see him, I hate it. I hate going back into prison. Like to go see, like I know I'm getting out, but I hate that feeling of walking back in there. But even just being on a visit with him, like all that anxiety just goes away. And that's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah.
So hopefully that is in the future, looking to settle down and just enjoy our lives, right? So that is my future. And then obviously like continue to grow the Newberg Center, because I think that we are an amazing organization that really centers the voices of Black and Brown trans folks, and invest in their leadership and invest in people who are assistance impacted. And I believe that growing this is something that can be amazing, because we can do a lot of amazing work. Yeah, and then I don't know, aside from, yeah, so that's kind of like with the next couple of years, I'm looking to get a car. I'm about to get my driver's license. So I have to take the 5-hour course, which I'm gonna have to do so at some point. And then have stability, have a little bit. I don't know when that will happen, but I want to stop renting. Every year you have to sign a lease and it goes up, and you don't know if you're going to get kicked out.
Right, it's you want again to
I don't want stability.
Safety,
that is kind of where my future has in 1-2 years to own a house, not with my credit score. But yeah, so,
right, building up to that as one of your goals. Yeah. That's great. And what would you like to share with younger people, or maybe not even younger people, but people listening?
People in general, I think no matter, I think what I want to say is that everyone has their own process. Everyone is so unique in their process. And I think never feel pressure to come out. I think that is so huge. Don't feel the pressure. I have to come out. I have to. It's okay. Like it's you. When you're ready, when you're safe, when you feel like it's okay, right? That is the key, because I think that when people are forced to come out, it's never a good thing. It's never a thing where things go smoothly. And I think that when you feel safe, and so there's emphasis on coming out, and also this emphasis on, when it comes to transitioning specifically, everybody's different. Like it doesn't matter, like how you perceive your own trans experience is what's you, whether that means getting top surgery, whether that means getting bottom surgery, or whether that means not getting bottom surgery and being on hormones, or having, it's what makes you feel comfortable. There is no one way to be feminine, right? There is no one way to be masculine. There is no one way to be like agender, right? There is no way. Everyone is an experience within their uniqueness. And that, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to come to an understanding within myself. I'm not trying to be a cis woman. I'm not. I am trying to be a trans woman. Well, I am a trans woman, but yeah, I'm not trying, and it's.
But you're trying to be yourself. Yeah. More of yourself.
In my early transitioning, I was trying to achieve cis womanhood, right? Like that is what I wanted to achieve. And right now I think I'm at a place like, no, I'm Alysha. I'm a proud transgender woman. And it's a growing process, and everyone experiences are unique. I
love this message.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
It so much.
It's, take risk, and for me, it's like take risk when you feel comfortable too.
Yeah. I mean, it's, to me, what you're emphasizing is the basic elements of well-being is safety and connection. And you're saying, no pressure to come out, no pressure to look or act a certain way. Just if any pressure, connect with the right people, find your tribe, find a place where you can be yourself. And then, it will come whatever needs to come, and not more and not less, instead of doing the other way around and coming out before you necessarily find the space and the connection that make you feel safe.
Yeah, and then I want to like just tie in this thing of why I do what I do and why it's so related, and how my transness is a huge impact of it, more so than myself as being incarcerated. I'm formerly incarcerated. For me, it is, so for me, abolition, right? Abolition is the abolition of the binary. And the reason of why every abolitionist organization should have a Black trans person leading the work, because the abolition of the binary is, the oldest binary in the world is, oh, you're male, you're female, right? And trans people are disrupting the oldest binary. Trans BIPOC folks are disrupting the binary, or in the most are impacted on a daily basis, and continuing to thrive in a society that is built up against them. And then that's why trans folks should be at the center of this work, center of the work of abolition, because abolition is building community. It is building community with one another. Like, it's building community with your next door neighbor, because inside a prison, we build a community. It doesn't matter where we fall in this line of this hierarchy of a totem pole inside a prison. We have this understanding of notion is that if we go, if one person goes down, we all go down. So we know how to take care of overdoses. We know how to, stop fights or protect fights or to disengage. We know how to deal with things like sexual assault and rape, all inside prison. And that's why it's important to hear from these impacted voices, because they're building a system, a community,
right,
regardless of their differences. Yes, there's plenty of things that go on in there.
Right.
But they're building a community that doesn't involve the police. 90% of the stuff that goes on in there doesn't involve the police, right? And then you talk about involving trans people inside of the prison system who are doing all of that, trying to transition, all the things that is built within this system, and understanding the importance of, no, I know you better than my next door neighbor. And this pandemic has put a strain on building relationships, but I think it really comes down to building relationships with your neighbors. So it's like, oh, hey, listen, I noticed something, going on in your house. Oh, no, don't worry. That's my brother. I told him to come over and drop a thing, versus someone calling the cops and seeing like there's a stranger in the neighborhood. Things like that, this constant communication of knowing your neighbors, building community and understanding, it's not the reliance of, not the reliance of the police officers, which is at the core of why we have mass incarceration, why there's 2.3 million Americans that are incarcerated, and is growing. It's not decreasing, it's growing today. And it starts with the police. And so
I love
we
your
need
vision.
to build a world without police.
Yeah, I love your vision, and it makes so much sense how all of your experience come together to do this work. And just a little bit light-hearted note at the end. When you said that you're not trying to be a cis woman, as a cis woman, I'm also not trying to be a cis woman. I'm like, I don't want these gender rules, It's just so I'm not comparing, but I'm saying this message is kind of, the binary needs to be destroyed also for cis folks, because
absolutely,
we all need to be free from it. And I don't know if it's true, but I read in a book that Zulu people tell their children while they're asleep that may you become who you are. And so I feel like when you're saying I'm not trying to be a cis woman, I'm just trying to be Alysha, it's kind of like again, the universal message, for us to all grow into who we are every day a little bit more, with a little bit more courage, with a little bit more risk taking, with a little bit more support, and with, all of that within that container of safety that you keep coming back to. So I'm super, super thankful that you're doing this today, the courage that it takes to share your story and to do the work that you're doing every day. So I'm giving you my gratitude, and please have the last word on whatever you want to finish with.
No, I think that the last word is literally build community, build relationships. That's how we're going to survive. Take the time to strengthen your relationships and have a conversation today. And that's how we're not only going to survive as a trans community, but as a community as a whole, is having stronger, authentic relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alysha.
Yes. No, thank you.
Thank you for being here and for listening. We hope you are feeling inspired to share your own experience and reality. If you like this video, please share it. You can follow us and hear about our latest video on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember that you are valued, you are loved. We see you.